Esther folded the last of her daughter's sweaters into the box marked clothes. Her small flat in Budapest had been their home for 7 years, but now, with the rent rising faster than her modest wage as a nurse, it was time to move. The decision to relocate to Szeged, a quieter city in southern Hungary, wasn't easy. But she hoped the slower pace and smaller community would be kinder to her and her 10-year-old daughter, Lily. The train to Szeged clattered along the tracks as Esther looked out the window, her thoughts tangled in worry and hope. Lily leaned against her, holding a worn notebook filled with doodles and dreams. Szeged promised a fresh start, a new school, a new life, and maybe, just maybe, fewer stares when she paid with coins at the grocery till. Their new flat sat above a modest bakery that filled the air with a scent of fresh calyx each morning. It was small but warm, with creaky floors and windows that let in golden light. Lily's eyes lit up when she saw her room, just big enough for her bed, books, and the posters of constellations she had brought from the old flat. On Monday, Esther took Lily to St. Istvan Altolano's Iskola, the most recommended primary school in the area. The building stood grand with faded ivy crawling up the stone facade. Inside, the echo of shoes on the polished floors spoke of prestige. The head teacher, Mr. Farkas, was polite but seemed hesitant as he reviewed Lily's application. Her grades were excellent, her behavior outstanding. But he mentioned the school had a certain culture, whatever that meant. The first day was a whirlwind. Esther met a few other mothers by the entrance gate. They wore tailored coats, whispered in tight circles, and eyed Esther's worn-out boots. One of them, a tall woman with sharp features and a diamond brooch that caught the sun, introduced herself. "I am Dora, PTA chair." Her voice was soft but clipped, like she was trying not to inhale the bakery scent clinging to Esther's coat. "We have standards here. You'll learn." Esther forced a smile. "Thank you. I'm just happy Lily has a chance." Dora didn't reply. She turned and walked off, heels tapping like punctuation on marble. Later that week, Esther received a letter, hand-delivered and unsigned. It was on embossed paper, with cursive handwriting too perfect to be warm. Some families may not find themselves comfortable at St. Istvan. Perhaps another school would better reflect your values and position. Esther sat in silence, staring at the page. She didn't cry. She didn't crumble. She folded the letter neatly, placed it in her handbag, and looked out the window at Lily playing in the courtyard, laughing, unaware of the walls rising around her. And just like that, Esther decided. They were staying. The following Monday began with frost on the window panes and the scent of cinnamon drifting up from the bakery below. Esther tied a scarf around her neck and walked Lily to school. As they passed through the school gates, she could feel the same eyes as before, curious, assessing, measuring her worth in silence. Inside the courtyard, mothers clustered again. This time, Dora was not alone. Beside her stood Zofia and Nora, both polished and poised, each carrying leather handbags that cost more than a month's rent in Esther's world. Their conversation hushed as Esther approached. Dora gave a tight-lipped smile. "We're hosting a small coffee morning for the PTA. Just a few mothers. Nothing formal," Dora said, slipping a pale card into Esther's hand. "At the Centrumside Cafe, tomorrow." Esther raised an eyebrow. "You want me to come?" Dora shrugged. "It's customary for new mothers. A chance to integrate." That word, integrate. It sounded like something poured through a sieve. Esther nodded. "All right, I'll come." The cafe the next day was all soft lighting and porcelain cups. Esther arrived 10 minutes early, choosing a seat near the window. She wore her best jumper and brushed the flour off her coat. Slowly, the other mothers arrived, dressed in muted cashmere and designer coats, their greetings light but clipped. The conversation turned to the winter ball, the upcoming fundraiser, and who was sponsoring what. Someone mentioned custom-printed menu cards. Another talked about importing decorations from Vienna. Esther sipped her tea in silence. Then, Zofia leaned forward. "What does your husband do?" Esther smiled faintly. "I'm not married."
"Oh.
"And what line of work are you in?" "I'm a nurse," she replied. "Pediatric unit." I used to work nights in Budapest. Dora tilted her head, eyes cool. That must be fulfilling. The pause that followed was sharp. A silence where judgment echoed. Esther set her cup down carefully. Yes, it is. I help children breathe. Some of them don't make it, but some do. And when they smile again, it's worth everything. Zofia blinked. Nora looked away. Dora merely nodded. Well, we do hope you'll help with the raffle table. Esther smiled again, but her eyes had changed. There was steel in them now. As the women chatted on, she made a quiet promise to herself. They would not decide her place here. Not with their polished words, nor with their pity disguised as poise. Back home that evening, Lily told her about the science club she wanted to join. They said there's a fee, she murmured. But it's okay if we can't. We can, Esther said. We always find a way. Rumors move faster than truth. By the end of Lily's second week, whispers began floating through the school hallways like smoke. A child repeated something overheard. A teacher hesitated before handing Lily an activity flyer. Esther noticed it too. The way invitations never came. The subtle reshuffling during classroom seating. At a parents' meeting, she overheard a comment barely whispered. It's not personal. It's just her kind doesn't fit here. Lily never mentioned it, but her drawings changed. The skies turned gray. The stick figures stood alone. Esther knew the signs. She confronted Mr. Farkas one morning after drop-off. He shifted uncomfortably behind his oak desk. These things, they take time, he said. It's important to maintain the culture of the school. Esther smiled, thin and brittle. The culture where some children don't belong? Mr. Farkas didn't answer. Outside, Esther stood still in the cold morning air. Her hands were shaking, but not from the chill. She had spent her life helping strangers fight illness. Now she had to fight something worse, indifference. And it had a perfectly polished smile. When the announcement came for the winter ball committee, Esther volunteered. There was a pause in the room. Dora looked up from the attendance sheet, blinking. You want to help organize? Yes, Esther replied. I'm good with logistics. Planning. Budgets. Zofia raised an eyebrow. It's a fundraising event, usually sponsored. I can bake, Esther said, and decorate. I don't need to spend to contribute. They gave her the least desirable task, managing storage, checking inventory, and packing decorations from previous years. Alone in the dusty school cellar, Esther worked for hours. Sorting, listing, cleaning glitter off every surface. One evening, Lily joined her. Mom, why do you help them when they don't like us? Esther looked up. Because they're wrong about us. And the best way to prove it is to show them they can't define who we are. The winter ball was approaching fast. Parents buzzed with excitement. Children practiced dances. Teachers rehearsed speeches. Then Lily came home with a furrowed brow. Mom, she whispered. Everyone got an invitation card today, except me. Esther froze. Are you sure? Lily nodded. They passed them out in class, but skipped me. Esther's lips pressed into a line. She tucked Lily's hair behind her ear. Then we'll make our own. That night, Lily and Esther painted a card together. Blue paper, silver ink, hand-drawn stars. Theirs was more beautiful than any of the printed ones. Esther wore her one nice dress. Lily wore white tights and a ribbon in her hair. They entered the school hall quietly. Heads turned. Some stared. But Lily walked tall, gripping her mother's hand.
She danced.
She laughed. And for that one evening, nothing else mattered. Until the raffle began. And Esther's name was never called. Not once. The next morning, Esther found her mailbox open. Inside was a crumpled piece of paper. You do not belong here. She closed the mailbox slowly. Inside the flat, she placed the note beside the first one. Later that week, she returned to the school cellar to finish clearing the decorations. But when she opened the storage door, shards of broken ornaments covered the floor. Someone had smashed nearly every box she had sorted. Footsteps echoed upstairs. Then silence. Esther stared at the mess. Her hands trembled, but she did not cry. Instead, She swept the floor, one shard at a time, until only the dust remained. Outside, snow had started to fall, and for a moment, the world was quiet. One evening, Esther received a letter in the post. Handwritten. Neat. It was from a retired teacher, Mrs. Hedderberry, who had once worked at the school. I heard what happened at the winter ball. You should know, not everyone supports their silence. Some of us still believe the school is meant for every child, not just the ones who look the part. Inside was a small slip of paper. A check. For Lily's science club fees. Esther didn't use it, but she kept the note in her wallet. It reminded her that kindness still had a voice, even if it whispered. Winter deepened. The city slowed under layers of snow. But Lily kept smiling. Her grades soared. She built a science model of the Danube River with cardboard and glitter. During an open classroom day, Esther watched from the back as Lily presented in front of a panel of parents and teachers. Her voice was steady, her confidence strong. The room applauded. Even Dora clapped. Afterwards, Mr. Farkas approached Esther. Lily, she's remarkable. She always was, Esther replied. You just needed to look. Outside, Dora caught up to her. We're arranging the spring fair, she said. There's an opening for logistics. If you're still interested. Esther paused. I'll think about it. A few weeks later, a poster went up in the school hallway. The science department had nominated Lily for the National Youth Innovation Prize. Some parents raised eyebrows. Others said nothing. But Mrs. Hedderberry, who had come out of retirement to help with judging, smiled warmly when she saw Lily's name. The night of the award, Esther and Lily sat in the front row. Lily's model stood among others, modest but clever. When her name was called, Lily stood frozen for a second. Then she walked to the stage. She looked out at the audience, at her mother, at the women who had once tried to erase her. And she smiled, because they were watching. Spring arrived in Szeged with blossoms and early sunshine. On a quiet Sunday morning, Dora stepped into the bakery below Esther's flat. The bell above the door jingled. She looked awkward in the warm, flower-dusted space. I tried your calyx at the spring fair, she said. It was excellent. Thank you, Esther replied. Dora hesitated. Perhaps we started on the wrong foot. Perhaps, Esther said. But I never needed your approval, just your respect. Dora nodded. She turned to leave, then paused. Your daughter, she has a bright future. She has her own light, Esther said. She doesn't need permission to shine. As the door closed behind her, Esther returned to kneading dough. The scent of warm bread filled the room. Upstairs, Lily sat by the window, sketching stars. Because some girls aren't made to fit in. They're made to stand out.